The local playground was far from our home, and my son used to walk a long way to go and play in it, so he asked me to build one in the backyard of our house. We suddenly had to move for my job, and I never got to building anything for him. Coincidentally, our new house had an old wooden playground in the backyard. I was so happy for my son, but I was worried as well because of the creepy vibes the playground would give me. The rusty swings and slippery slide were long abandoned. A few days after moving in, I started hearing noises coming from the playground at night. There were sounds of children laughing, the creak of the swings, and noises of sliding down the slide. Now, I knew that it wasn't my son, as he's always asleep by the time I go to bed, and yet every night I would hear the noises. I'll start from the first night that I experienced these strange playground noises. I woke up to the sound of something squeaking from outside. I recognized it to be the sound of the rusty chain of the tire swing spinning around. I also heard a young child's laughter out there. I thought it was my son, so I went to his room to find him in his bed fast asleep. My heart dropped as I saw him in his bed. That meant some stranger was in my yard. But when I opened the back door to the backyard, there was no one there. The tire swing was spinning slowly, as if somebody had just hopped off of it. I chalked it up to some kid just sneaking into my yard and went back to sleep. The next night, I woke up to the sound of someone stomping up and down the slide. I could hear children's laughter, too. This time I knew it couldn't be my son. He was sound asleep in his bed. I got out of bed and crept to the window, peeked out, and saw the playground, but it was empty. The slide was still, and there was no sign of anyone. I opened the window and listened. The laughter was gone, but I could still hear the stomping. I stepped outside and looked around, but there was no one there. I walked over to the slide and touched it. It was cold and wet. I looked down, and I saw a single footprint in the dirt. It was small. It looked like it had been made by a child. I backed away from the slide, my heart pounding. I didn't know what to do. I was scared, but I also felt like I had to find out what was going on. I decided to stay up all night and watch the playground. I sat on the porch drinking coffee, and I watched the playground for hours. It was just as I had left it, empty and silent. I didn't see anything else, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I went in and kept thinking about it the whole night. Now, for the next couple of nights, nothing happened, and I completely forgot about it. But on the third night, while in bed, I heard a knock at my window. I sat up in shock for a good minute, afraid to look outside. But eventually I was brave enough to do so. I looked out the foggy window through the smog, and I could see both the swings on the swing set were swinging lightly, accompanied by the laughter of children again. I ran as fast as I could down those stairs and out the back door. But instead of finding a couple of little kids back there, I saw some towering figure looming at the top of my playground. As I caught that sight, all my courage was gone, and I turned to run back inside, locked the door, and dialed 911. The wait for an officer to arrive was the longest 20 minutes I'd ever experienced. By the time they got there, though, the figure on the playground was gone. They took down what little information I could give them and left. Finally, I decided to move. I couldn't take it anymore. I put the house up for sale, and a few weeks later we moved away. I'm still not sure what was happening at that house or the backyard playground. I've never seen the figure again, but I know it's out there somewhere. I'm just glad my son and I aren't there anymore. I still have nightmares about that figure. I see it standing at the top of the playground, watching me. I know it's not real, but it feels so real. I'm afraid that one day I might experience that again. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the sun was about to set. My wife Elizabeth came to me and told me that our daughter Sarah is getting bored at home and she wants to play outside with other kids. So we took our daughter to the children's park nearby. She was having a blast on the swings and enjoyed playing with others, while we sat on a bench nearby watching her. My wife and I got so carried away in our fun chat that we didn't notice the sun had just disappeared and it was getting dark. That's when we decided that it was time to go back home. We called out for Sarah, but she didn't respond. Fear crawled up our spine and I got worried. I looked everywhere in the park to find her, but she wasn't there. All the other children and their parents were leaving or had already left, and the park was almost empty, but Sarah was nowhere to be seen. We searched the whole park. Our voices were trembling with worry, but Sarah had just vanished. My wife and I felt like losing all hope to find her, and we knew that Sarah was either kidnapped or lost. Panic whispered through our hearts as we searched all the surrounding blocks near the children's park, but we couldn't find her. We called the police immediately, and as soon as they arrived, they started to search for her as well. Hours passed, and it was almost midnight, and Sarah's disappearance was becoming a never-ending nightmare. We were losing all hope. Then, just as we were about to give up, my wife saw Sarah. She was walking away from us down the street, holding the hand of a man. The man seemed to be crippled because his left leg dragged behind him as he walked. The man was tall and thin with long, dark hair. He was wearing a black trench coat and a hat. He had a weird face, as if he was wearing a mask. We ran towards them, shouting Sarah's name. As we started shouting Sarah's name, the man stopped walking and turned to look at us. His eyes were filled with anger, and he was out of breath as he seemed to be breathing aggressively. He stopped for a moment, and then he began to drag himself even faster down the street, dragging Sarah along with him. As we followed him, he took a turn towards another street along with Sarah. We ran after him and followed him onto the other street. And that's when we saw Sarah was just standing there with her head down and sobbing softly. Both of us ran and hugged her and comforted her for some time. And then we asked her about what had just happened with her. Who was she with this whole time? But she just shook her head on every question. She insisted that she didn't know anything about how she got here. Sarah said that the last thing she remembered was that she was playing in the park and that she saw a man standing just outside the park's fence, looking right at her and calling her name. And then she said, "I don't remember what happened after that and how I got here." Anyhow, both of us were relieved to see that she was safe, but we were also confused and very scared. We didn't know who the man was or what he had done to her. We discussed the whole situation on our way home, and as we reached the house, we were shocked. There was a box sitting right at our doorstep. It said, "For Sarah." Elizabeth started crying, but I opened the box, and it had the same hat which that man was wearing. There was a note which said, "I will take her with me." Elizabeth was flabbergasted, and I couldn't believe what was happening. We started to hear footsteps at our house during the night. Mysterious knocks all over the house disturbed us every day. Sarah started having nightmares, and she couldn't even sleep. She always complained that a creepy, tall man follows her everywhere she goes. She saw him outside her school, the park, and even outside our house. We're having therapy sessions for our daughter right now, and the police have been following up on these events, but they've never found any trace of that man. Is this man even real? No one knows. I used to live in a town which always had a strange darkness, and you could hear whispers during the night. I wasn't particularly afraid of the night. My job was a food delivery guy during the night when no one would dare wander alone in the shadows. One night, my phone rang with an order. The address was far away, and I could see how some people wouldn't want to deliver food this late and that far, but I couldn't say no. So, I hopped on my trusty bicycle and I pedaled toward the house with food in my bag. As I pedaled across the town, the clouds grew angry and it started raining. Eventually, a major thunderstorm crossed my path. My clothes were soaking wet, and I wanted to protect the food as well. I was shivering like a leaf, so I decided to take cover under some trees until it all passed. Ahead, through the rainfall, I saw a faint glimmer of light. When I followed it, I saw it was a house, and surprisingly the only house in sight. The house was standing like a tower against the storm. My heart pounded as I reached the doorstep of that house and knocked on the door. The door creaked open, revealing a strange woman. Her eyes were as dark as the night, and her voice wobbled like a ghost's whisper.
What do you want? Are you a traveler?
He asked. Every word she spoke was scaring me more and more. With a gulp, I explained to the woman about my food delivery. As I was speaking, I could see the woman's lips curling into a crooked smile, and she invited me in. The air felt heavy inside, as if there were lots of secrets in there, and I was curious to know them all. In the dim light, I saw an old man sitting in a chair in front of a broken television. I sensed that something was off. The man was as still as a doll, and his eyes stared ahead without blinking. The woman gestured for me to sit and wait for the storm to calm down, but I couldn't take my eyes off the unmoving old man. I was behind him, so I didn't have a good view of him, but I kept leaning forward again and again to figure out his situation. When the woman went into another room, I stood up slowly and tiptoed toward the old man. My fingers were trembling as I touched the man's arm, and a shiver zipped down my spine. I was shocked to feel that the old man was cold and lifeless. I got gripped by immense fear, and I stumbled backward, just as the woman returned. Her eyes were filled with evil, and she had a knife in her hand.
You shouldn't have done that,
she hissed in her sharp voice. I started screaming and ran toward the door. The rain was still heavy when I stepped outside the house. The wind seemed to carry my frightened yells all around the town. I didn't deliver the food, and I went to inform the police about this incident immediately. The next day, the police arrived at the house. But what they found was a mystery that shocked them as well. Both the old man and the strange woman were dead with post-mortem, stating that they'd been dead for about a week. There was no way that I was just talking with a woman who died a week ago. How could she interact with me if she was already dead? The police found the woman's body in her room, the same room she went into when I was at her place. They also discovered signs of occult and black magic all over the house. The diary that the police found stated that the woman killed her husband first and then sold her soul to the devil. To this day, I am unable to figure out what happened that night and how they ended up dead alone in their house.